Hello everyone, it's Mike Young here, and in this video we're going to be going over executing your draft's win condition. So the first step that you have to do when executing your draft's win condition is figuring out what is your draft's win condition. What type of team comp do you classify under, what each role of each player is, what each player's responsibilities are, and general idea of how to play the game. Fast or slow, team play or playing individually. So generally speaking, there are a few different types of comps, like for example, dive comps, poke comps, scaling comps, early game comps. But League of Legends is really complicated when it comes to going into the very small details. So generally speaking, we want to have an overall idea of how we want to play, just to simplify things to start, and then later on, as you get to higher level, then we can go into the small details. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna go first into these VODs. So this VOD here is from the World Championship, the World Finals. We're gonna analyze which team comp it has what win condition. And if you guys want to practice, feel free to pause right now and give it a try, and then I'm going to give you guys the answer in a second. Okay, so to begin, let's just start with a very general idea. So which team comp has the better early game and which team comp has the better late game? So just very quickly give an idea, or you can say it's like pretty even. Okay, so now let's decide. So definitely, if I were to give a very straightforward answer, red side's team comp, the right side, has a better late game. Generally speaking, because Aphelios is more of a hyper carry, Rakan is more of a scaling support as well. Yes, of course, Ziggs and Leona can match them, but I believe that a traditional AD carry like Aphelios will have much better chance in team fights. And when it comes to Zoe versus Syndra, Syndra is more of a early game to mid game like carry, whereas Zoe is also early to mid game, but in team fights, Zoe is going to have a much easier time playing against these type of champions, where she can land one bubble on Ziggs, Trundle, Syndra, Graves, and then they're poked out, and she has very long range harass. Whereas Syndra, she won't have a very easy time with all the CC. Take a look at all the CC coming at her. Henin, Xin Zhao, Rakan, Aphelios ulti has a root. Zoe has a long range Drowsy. It's going to be very hard for Showmaker to play the game. Obviously, the jungle role, not really in terms of like scaling. They're just there for the team. They have like CC, a good early game. Both junglers are more just like there to support their laners and to start fights and to secure objectives. So we don't necessarily have to go over these two champions in terms of like team fighting. They both have great opportunities where they have CC, they have good clear. As for top lane, Kennen is a much better team fighter, because he has all the AoE and CC engage as well. Whereas Graves is a better early game skirmisher and mid game split pusher. So in general, right side has a better team fight for sure, better late game scaling. So generally speaking, left side has to use the advantage of like Graves' better early game laning phase pairing up with Trundle. Syndra has better CC setup early game as well. In like the small skirmishes, she can blow up someone really easily. In smaller numbered fights, Syndra shines because you can instantly like take one person out and you won't get zoned by a bajillion CC abilities coming at you and zoning you. And then Ziggs probably just gonna farm and Leona's gonna roam. So that's how you analyze a general win condition of each team. Specifically in this case, I would bet my money on red side, and EDG did win in the end, just to spoil you guys. I'm sure you guys have already watched this, so hopefully that's fine. And as far as we know, left side has a win condition as well. Although we weren't able to see it in this game 5, there is a possible chance for them to win, which is playing through top because Graves has a better laning phase than Kennen. And then Syndra has better CC setup than Zoe in the early game because it's much easier to land a stun with Syndra than a Drowsy that can easily be cleansed as well. In general as well, they have a hard time 5v5ing against this type of zone control, so they're kind of already defaulting the win hard early game route, or at least get a small advantage, because at the world stage even a small advantage can go a long way. Okay, so there's that for the world's review, and now I wanted to take a look at General Sniper, our rank 1's players match history, just to give you guys more of a brief overview of how you can practice building this topic, which is executing your draft win condition, learning how to analyze your draft win condition. And so you can literally go through your own match history or high elo match history and see how games are played out to learn. So for example, how you would want to start is analyze role by role. After you analyze role by role, analyze how each champion synergizes with each other in the overall team comp. So role by role, let's start with top down. So Tryndamere versus Camille. Super volatile, but Tryndamere definitely has an advantage because of the ultimate. If you can imagine the matchup being played out, Tryndamere has a very good way to deny Camille from getting that execute with his ultimate, and then also Tryndamere can sustain better than Camille. So top is definitely volatile. Of course you can see Camille win as well because Camille has the ignite here, and it's a snowball win. So next is going to be Galio versus Nautilus in the bot lane. So in this case, Galio versus Nautilus is probably those type of laners are just gonna leave lane and roam because we have the self-sufficient mages, which are Swain and Syndra bot. This is not a conventional bot lane that you see in a lot of your games, but generally speaking, when you see mages in the bot lane, usually they're just chill. They're chill and they're farming. So that makes the other lanes more volatile. That makes jungle matchup more volatile because now a support is roaming and helping influence the entire other side of the map rather than bot lane. Shaco versus Hecarim. Shaco is super snowball heavy. Hecarim is also one of his weaknesses in his early game is that he is very squishy in the early game. He still doesn't have very many tank items at all. So jungle is volatile. And then as for mid is more utility based this game. Better at roaming rather than being played through. So that's what makes top the focal point of this game. Because LeBlanc is a really good roamer. He also has TP. Galio has global to head top. Shaco is probably going to path top. Here, Lissandra has TP. Syndra has TP. They have literally 2 TPs. Top is the focal point. Lissandra is a utility-based champion with literally a gap closer, CC, AoE CC on W, and an ulti for CC2. So everyone's focal point is top lane. And the faster a team realizes this, the better of advantage they can have in draft. So if you can figure out that the focal point is top lane in this draft, maybe like on 4-5 you can pick champions that enhance Tryndamere's volatility. And you know, a great support would be like Shen support. Another example is like taking TP, like this Swain. You consider taking TP so he can play to top side. Of course, there's a reason why he wants cleanse, but if he plays safe, it might be good. Those are just examples. You can also play more of a global in mid lane like TF, and that can possibly swing the matchup top because you have that extra global. So that's just a good example of how to analyze just any random game. So if we were to analyze just this next one, which is the Akali top, so now things are a little bit different, whereas we have Ezreal Bard in the bot lane versus Draven Karma. A lot of you guys might know that Draven Karma are one of the easiest lanes to gank in the bot lane because they are always going to be pushing. They're very squishy. They don't have any dashes as well. So that's definitely going to be a volatile hotspot in the game. Ezreal Bard. Ezreal is a very strong champion that scales well off of items and levels. So it's always worth putting resources into this lane. But on top of that, the reason why it's so worth for for both bot laners to play bot side here is because of this Draven Karma volatility spike. That means that these guys are going to be hyper focused on pushing, fighting all the time. We have a random Kindred mid lane. I know that's off meta, and it's the Kindred versus Ryze. So Ryze likes to roam, Kindred likes to kind of stay in lane, can roam too, but Kindred is probably like a better early game mid laner than Ryze, surprisingly, because Ryze does need items to come online. Rek'Sai versus Lee Sin. Rek'Sai does have the early game advantage on Lee Sin. It's kind of even actually, it depends on lane priority. So that's one thing to think about. As far as Akali versus Jax, this is actually probably the lowest point of volatility in this game. Just because Akali and Jax are both champions that are pretty chill up until the point where they get more items. Like in the early laning phase, if you can imagine Akali's trading patterns before 6, she's just gonna farm and then use stealth to run away. And as for TF Blade and Jax in this matchup, like if Jax ever jumps on Akali, you just stealth, and there's not much volatility up here. So the biggest volatility is bot lane. So the faster teams notice this, the better, and you can start calling your jungler and champion select, okay, I need you to come help bot lane, or we need you guys to make sure to keep track of the enemy jungler heading bot lane, and we need to also always coordinate ganks around bot lane, make sure our bot lane is fine from dives, or we should punish the Draven Karma if they're pushed up. We have Bard Portal, we have Rek'Sai Tunnel, and we have Exhaust for the Draven. So that's something to think about. If blue side here, team 1, is even smarter, what they would have had is they would have had a more utility-based mid laner, and they would have used that utility-based mid laner in order to support the jungler's aggression, because we have a high damage mid laner, and we also already have high DPS top and AD carry. Other than that, everything looks pretty good in terms of Team 1's draft. Bard is actually very strong in setting up ganks with Rek'Sai, especially against hyper push with no mobility lanes. And Akali does very well against an enemy team because there's many targets to focus in terms of champions that Akali wants to assassinate. And not only that, but Ezreal is one of the best AD carries to snowball because he is really hard to kill, and he's also very hard to kite because of the Q slow with the Cyril's Grudge. Alright guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember that reviewing a game of bad or good draft after, say you play out like a 30-minute game, it's important to review how you played your draft's win condition and how you executed, rather than just defaulting that, oh, they had a better draft. You want to first acknowledge your mistakes, and then you can try to improve the draft after. Alright, thanks for watching guys. Have a good one.